Hey everybody, welcome to this month's lunar cycle overview. It starts on December 19th, 2025, with a new moon very close to the galactic center, Sagittarius A star, and a full moon January 3rd in the stars of Gemini in the very degree of fixed star Sirius. So, looking like it has the potential for some continued intensity. We have a lot of aspects from Pisces this month, which could bring some and just more Pacific flavor, more mellow, more subdued energies, more peaceful, more mellow. But at the same time, there are some signs of intensity. So without further ado, we'll see right away that the sun and moon are meeting almost on top of the galactic center. The moon is right here with it. Sun on Mars and Venus midpoint, and Mercury on Antares. So the inner planets are in this very intense cluster. As we move around the zodiac, we'll see Pluto in early Capricorn. We'll see North Node in Aquarius. In the stars of Pisces, we have a really packed Pisces. We have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We have Ceres down in the territory of Cetus. We have Eris and Chiron, the centaur Chiron, conjunct in later Pisces. So we have five bodies in Pisces. Taurus and the Pleiades in particular host Uranus. And late in Gemini we find Jupiter. Early in Leo, because the South Node is moving this way around the zodiac, contrary to the planets. So sort of early in Leo, we find the South Node as it's making its way towards Cancer. And that's where we find everything this month. There's a lot to say, but I think I'll save that for the chart section. So let's check it out. And here we're oriented to the very same sky we were just looking at. The new moon on December 19th, 2025. We see the new moon conjunct galactic center. That's the very main event. And because of that, we're looking at a new beginning, kind of an astrological new year. So first, before we even get into this 19th of December 2025 chart, I want to take a look. I want to back it up to December 18th. That's right, slightly different chart the day before, when the sun conjoined galactic center exact. You'll see that this chart represents not the new moon. Moon and sun are some ways away from each other, but it represents the sun exact over the galactic center, the degree of galactic center. It's close to the ecliptic, but it's not on it. So we'll talk about it in precise terms. Sun and degree of galactic center. So in the interest of time, I want to keep this simple. This chart is sort of functioning as a sort of solar return chart for our system, like the sort of prognosis of the year ahead, I would say, is more evident in this sun conjunct galactic center chart than any other chart we could draw just to look at the year in mundane astrology. So this is a good marker, a good New Year's point. And we see sun on the Venus-Mars midpoint. Like I said in the planetarium section, the inner planets are very clustered. And we have Venus on fixed star Ras Al Hag in the degree of Alpha Ophiuchus, a northern star. And we have Venus, the same Venus, trying to Chiron exact, just exact. If you notice down here, you'll see zeroed. trine that's very, very auspicious for healing, very powerful. So we have a lot of omens here of conscious transformation, conscious, the inner planets, transformation, Scorpio Ophiuchus, but for the better, for healing, for spiritual evolution. And with Mars leading the way in Sag, we have omens of new steps, new journeys, new beginnings. The squares that all of this makes to Pisces, the squares to this set Ceres, Neptune, Saturn, are indicative of confusion and delay. So this year may be marked with some significant sense of confusion and delay, at the same time as it's marked by healing and rejuvenation and all this conscious transformation. Jupiter squares to Chiron very closely, 0 degrees 15 arc minutes, and this cautions against overconfidence, overzealousness, maybe unrealistic dreams of healing all at once, dreams of like unrealistic ambitions. Like sometimes with Jupiter squares, we can get very, very expanded hopes and dreams about something. And the challenge is to keep things realistic. So we want to watch unrealistic ambitions, especially around healing. Keep our ambitions around healing realistic. Healing's often a slower process than we like, a more involved and kind of onion-like layered process than many of us like. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean we're shabby. It's just that's the nature of healing. The last thing I really noticed that I think is worth calling its own attention to is Mercury, right on fixed star Antares, right in the degree of Alpha Scorpio. And Antares is an incredible star. It's a huge, massive, very powerful star, and it radiates warrior energy. It radiates ambition. It radiates eminence and strategic ability. It's an omen of great success. It's also an omen of obsession, of danger, and of destruction. Very often self-destruction. So this gives us this year in every mercurial aspect of our lives, which is too many to name simply. Communication, commerce, travel, writing, reading. Yeah, so Mercury is marked this year by potential for achievement, amazing potential for achievement. But we have to be careful. We have to be mindful because the energies of Antares, fixed star Antares, are very specific, and they have infused within the thing in an inextricable way. They have infused the energies of self-sabotage, and they don't like the energies of Antares. It doesn't like drama. It really doesn't like drama. Antares has an energy that will attract drama. It will actually inspire drama. The power that Antares gives is so great that it often creates drama as a test to see how the one who is given power will respond to the drama. Antares does not like drama, and the passing of the test of Antares is always indicated by keeping drama in its proper place and not indulging in drama. So these cautionary tales against drama, against obsession, against fixation, against self-sabotage in the world of our mercurial dimension. These omens are going to apply to the entire year ahead, very generally speaking. And because we're speaking very generally, I'm just going to leave this report at that. This Sun conjunct Galactic Center report is now concluded, and we can get on to the new moon. All right, just to orient carefully, we're looking at the new moon now on the 19th of December. So these charts look similar to, this chart looks similar to the chart we just looked at on the 18th of December, very naturally. But this new moon is symbolic of the starting point of the cycle, and the blueprint here, the map, is a map of the intention of the cycle. The seed planted on the 19th December is understood to kind of hit a high point on the full moon, 3rd of January. So we're looking at this as a time, a sort of peaceful, mellow time to plan, to plant, and to rest. Yeah, to rest, to meditate, to contemplate, to take things easy. This isn't a big action time. This is the downward swing of the natural pulse of our cosmic cycle. So let's take a look at the very basic components. We have this Sag, very early Sag, 1 degree, 1 arc minute new moon, which is still conjunct galactic center, but expressing itself in Sagittarian terms. The sun and moon remain close to Venus and Mars in their midpoint. That's something that we've seen for going on over a month now. The sun and moon are square to Saturn, Neptune, and Sirius in Pisces, and they're trine to Eris and Chiron, also in Pisces. So we have very special relationships. In fact, all the major relationships that this new moon is forming, the conjunction aside, but the squares and the trines are all to Pisces. We also see a very, very close quincunx that's in conjunction to Uranus, who is sitting in the Pleiades in Taurus. So with those basic features in mind, let's take a look at this in a more kind of granular way. We do have this inner planets cluster. The sun and moon is happening conjunct galactic center. This is a very intense point, a very heavy point, a lot of gravity around galactic center, a lot of gravity around life and death. And it has to do, this moon as a Sagittarian expression, just having moved past galactic center. I really see a lot here about stepping out in new directions and clarifying truth. It's a very confident and hopeful, signature after this journey through the Scorpion's territory. That journey ends with the passage of galactic center. That sort of marks the end of Scorpio, the end of Scorpio Ophiuchus. And sun and moon remain close to the Venus-Mars midpoint. And this is just really going to amplify things. It's going to charge them with a very tense, dynamic energy, a very charismatic energy. And at the same time, Venus and Mars tend to balance each other. Not that they cancel each other out, but that they just tend to, as a masculine feminine pair, they tend to harmonize. So Venus can bring her more delicate, sensitive, feminine approaches to conflict resolution, to Martian matters, which often involve conflict. And Mars can bring his dynamic and really exciting, adventurous spirit to all things Venusian, which is again, like Mercury, just it's too long to list, but it's anything having to do with like beauty or niceness, luxury, anything having to do with our values, anything having to do with our self-relationship. Venus governs, in a word, the things we appreciate, and Mars can just kind of step that up, make it dynamic and exciting. We don't have to be stuck in just, habits of the things we like. Mars and his placement in Sag can indicate new steps, experimental, finding new things, doing new things. Yeah, all the above, all the above. So with this Mars, Venus, Sun, Moon formation, the Moon will move on and Mercury is sort of separate. He'll be doing what he's doing this month. But we'll see Sun, Venus, and Mars doing a lot in tandem this month. And that'll make more sense when we get to the transits, so we don't need to focus on it now. One of the things that Sun, Venus, and Mars are doing is squaring to Saturn, Neptune. I mentioned here already the potential for confusion. That's a Neptune square function, and delay. That's a Saturn square function. So a lot of what we talked about in the obvious, well, maybe it's not obvious. Maybe I should say it. A lot of what we talked about on that December 18th Sun conjunct Galactic Center chart is going to apply to this month. This month specifically is going to be a little template of the year ahead. A little omen, so we can keep our eye open for that. But there is power here. There's power here to manifest. There's power here to channel what we really believe in and are really inspired to act according to. These are Neptune functions. And we can channel this inspiration and this vision and this motivation into the real world, into Saturn, who rules shared reality. Shared reality. The reason we can have this conversation at all is because of the organizational structures signified by Saturn, such as language, which allows us to communicate. We think of that as very mercurial, but the organizational principles of language, the structure of information and all this, which allows us to share, the agreements like math that we know what 555 might signify. All this is Saturnian. So we have a Saturn-Mercury connection. We have a sort of when you get Saturn and Mercury together, you get ideologies, you get philosophies, you get bigger systems and structures. And Jupiter plays a lot of role in philosophy too, but Jupiter and Saturn are brother and sister that way. They both rule power and law and structure and even to some extent philosophy. Yeah, don't give Saturn like, oh, he has no philosophy. He has no guiding organizational principles. It's not true. It's not true at all. Saturn does reflect very firmly codified principles. Mars, Sun, and Venus this month will also make trine to Eris and Chiron. And this is really symbolic of a lot of deep healing, a lot of self-recognition here. There's a ton of inner work, kind of inner work that's empowered and strengthened here. Difficult inner work sometimes to soften the heart, right? These Pisces functions to soften the heart where it's been hardened and numbed. With Venus and Mars in this mix with this trine, we have the potential for possibly sexual healing, possibly healing from sexual wounds, possibly anything along that spectrum. And with this quincunx to Uranus in the Pleiades, it's very minor, but we may experience this month ingenuity in very unexpected ways, very intuitively arising ways. Pleiades has always been the territory. Well, always. Pleiades has long, since time out of mind, been the territory of the moon, very specifically associated with lunar functions and activities. So Uranus being here, quincunx to Sun and Moon, is just very symbolic of a need to listen to our feelings, a need to listen to our intuition, and for insights and for guidance. So the potential is here this month, and the quincunx implies that we may need to lean into that. It might not be evident just naturally and effortlessly. And that's the sort of simple breakdown. That's how it shakes out. The report for the year and the report for the month are only a day apart. So in many ways, this month will be a bit of an omen of the year ahead, like I was saying. And in regard to the broad strokes and most noticeable patterns, I think the best thing to do in that regard is keep things very simple, very just to the main points when we think about this. Since we'll be in Sag all month, we have about the whole lunar cycle to explore these Sagittarian energies. There's going to be a lasting this month, theme of truth in Sag. That's what Sag loves. Sag loves actual reality. Sag loves natural law. Sag is very concerned with how things really are before we describe them, before we even recognize them. Before we recognize, before we apprehend and describe and create a point in our mental model that corresponds with something, what is the thing in itself, right? Sagittarius is correlate with the noumena of Immanuel Kant. Kant said that we can never understand reality on its own. We can only understand it through our perceptual filters. So we can never understand the noumena, but we can only understand the phenomena, the phenomenal world. Phenomenal world more signified by Capricorn and Saturn, and this is just one of the ways they work together. So this month, just stay open. We have these powerful connections to Uranus. We have powerful aspects to mystical, spiritual Pisces, and we're moving through Sagittarius. So keep your eyes open for cracks where the light is really shining through brightly, where reality is really talking to you this month. Pay attention to omens and signs and all the spiritual language that life can speak. We do have confusion and delay. Yeah, I mean that might be as close to a break in all this intensity. The intensity of Scorpio season. Next new moon will be here with Pluto. We'll talk about that later. And again, just to wrap up this new moon report, Mercury on Antares is a fantastic warning to avoid drama. So we've got a quest for truth through confusion and delay, great healing journey with a lot of powerful potential to turn corners, to make healing strides. That's what I see in this chart, this new moon chart. So without delay, let's take a look at the waxing transits. Here we are. Just to orient everyone, we're looking at the transit graph for the period of time between the new moon, that's December 19th, 2025, and the full moon, that being January 3rd, 2026. And that makes these the waxing transits. So we'll take a look at the new moon, waxing quarter moon chart on the way. And for those of you who are familiar with transit graphs, you may pick up right away on something. This entire 2-week period is basically inner planet squares to outer planets. And even more specifically, this is the Mars, Venus, and Sun squares to Sirius, Saturn, and Neptune. So we have this Sag Pisces square, very religio-spiritual. all the inner planet squares to Saturn, Neptune, and Ceres will kind of, first we have Sun, then we have Mars, then we have Venus doing her thing, and then we have Mercury coming in near the end. So I'm going to talk about this all in a really general terms. I'm not really going to go over it point by point, like, oh, you know, these couple of days will be like this couple of days will be like that. I want to say the whole first 2 weeks of the month into January, and really shortly after January 3rd, this will change. We have these like powerful kind of gatekeeping scenarios where the squares imply that the imbalances to be balanced are like these are like holding us back from deeper realities. What these energies signify being held back from deeper realities. And I'll tell you why I think that. In the organization of our solar system, we have Sun, and then we have 4 tiny planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. And they're tiny. All those planets are tiny compared to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Those are giants. They dwarf Earth even, the biggest of those first 4. But between the second set of 4, which is massive, and the first set of 4, which is small, there's an asteroid belt. And Ceres speaks for the asteroid belt. She's there as a gatekeeper. She keeps the boundary between the inner planets and Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. She, as Ceres, is the sort of asteroid queen, and she keeps that boundary. And then we have Saturn himself, which is also representative of a boundary. Saturn is where the known world ends. He's the last visible planet. He's the slowest traveler, and he's always represented the boundaries of all of this. And then Neptune is the very last orderly planet, the very last planet that does anything that makes consistent sense. After that, it's out to Pluto and the trans-Neptunians. Lots of dwarf planets, very eccentric planets, they're doing strange things. So Neptune is like signifying the edge of organized reality, and that signified reflected inwardly too. Stephen Forrest, in his excellent book on Neptune, is painting this picture of Neptune as a window. So when we think of what part of the house is a window, is it inside or outside? It's just a boundary. It is a boundary, and Neptune is this window through which we perceive the vast strangeness of the outer planets, the trans-Neptunians. Without getting into all this like solar system philosophy, I just want to say that all of these series, Saturn and Neptune, they represent thresholds. They represent thresholds to deeper realities, to more outer realities, to more impersonal realities. And the squares represent imbalances to be balanced in order to tap into the potential inherent. So we may see this manifest in a couple ways. And some examples of the ways we might see this manifest are in differences, maybe even struggles, dynamic polarity between our opinions. That's an inner planets thing, our opinions, and how life actually works, right? That's an especially Saturn thing, but it's an outer planet function, how life works. So we may have our ideas versus how things really are. We may see our motivations. Now that's a Piscean function where we find the outer planets. We may see our motivations pitted against bigger picture realities. That's a Sagittarian function. So we may see, in a couple ways, our ideas, our personal take on this, we may see it conflict with the bigger picture ideas. The plan, the big plan for what's happening. We may see these dreams and these passions, these are like Pisces and Venus Mars words, dreams and passions, be pitted against realistic limitations. That's the short version of it. you can see there's a little bit common thread through all those examples of ways we can think about this. But I wouldn't be surprised to see what we want pitted against the bigger picture plan for our lives, and us having to sort of shimmy in and adjust to the container, as it were, rather than enforce so much our will out onto life. That's sort of Sagittarius wants to explode its will out into the world and to become and to manifest and to make things happen. But Pisces is Pisces could inspire that. That's more the potential of the square when it's resolved. That Pisces vivid inspiration infuse this Sagittarian victory. And then elsewhere in here, we do have like Venus trine Eris on the 20th, and we have Mercury trining Eris on the 29th, the only supportive aspects, and they're iridian. So the good news is that Venus and Mercury move pretty fast. Eris won't have a big chance to like really cluster up their activities, but on the 20th and 29th, it may just be a very good time to recognize that iridian impulse towards self-sabotage, and just to be careful how we're organizing our mind and our communication, how we're communicating, because these squares could be really difficult. These squares could represent a straight up 2-week period of challenge. And these trines from Eris only indicate that communication could become part of a problematic scenario. So in order to overcome this, in order to tap into the amazing potential indicated by all these squares, I think we're going to have to solve that imbalance. We're going to have to kind of overcome the Sagittarian urge to like expand and explode our will and like take charge and be the boss. We might have to blend that with some Piscean surrender, or maybe even compromise. All right, let's take a look at the waxing moon chart. This will be on the 27th of December, 2 days after Christmas. Here we are. I see that Sun is square to Sirius, where Moon is right here with Sirius. So we have very close relationships. Moon conjunct Sirius 2 arc minutes, and Sun square Sirius 2 arc minutes. This could be a more passionate or emotionally invested journey that we make to bridge these gaps. The gap indicated by the square, the imbalance or gap that we bridge or balance. But I'll leave this up for those who make a thorough study of the month's energies, and we can get back to the transits. And so looking at the last half of this 2-week period is just pretty similar to the first half of it. The squares to Ceres, Saturn, and Neptune really dominate. And we finish this up with Sun conjunct to Venus, and that will enter a period of time where we're switching morning and evening star, and we'll pick that thought up after we examine the full moon on the 3rd. One thing I want to say before we get on to that is that this 2 weeks, don't look at these squares and think, oh, let's write this 2 weeks off. But look at these squares and think, wow, that is a lot of power hidden behind a lot of challenge to solve. So be ready for imbalance. Just be ready for imbalance and know that if you can balance these imbalances and channel these impulses constructively, there's incredible potential here to make progress in any philosophical or religio-spiritual matter. I say that very broadly because these are Sag Pisces issues. The whole of the inner planets are moving through Sag, and the all of these outer planets are Piscean. So we have a religio-spiritual puzzle to solve, friends. And that's one way to look at this. So let's get on to the full moon. Okay, we are here in the year 2026. We've done it. We made it. Made it through another year. Anyway, it's full moon on 3rd January 2026, and we see the sun in Sag. We see the moon in Gemini, and we see this axis, this Sag-Gemini axis, really turned up by a couple factors. We have Jupiter with the moon. We have the moon on the degree of the brightest star in the sky, fixed star Sirius, the scorcher. And we have the sun on the degree of the ecliptic star Nunki. Powerful, powerful stars. We also have Chiron stationed direct, still in the sky to appearances from Earth. So let's just jump in from here. That's kind of the basic idea of this full moon. The full moon, again, sort of the high point of the cycle. So one thing we can say when we see Sirius involved in a full moon is that it has the potential to be intense. Sirius is called the scorcher because it has a famous reputation for turning things up to like 11 or 12 or 13 and just forcing people to deal with too much. Way too much. And it's actually that's Sirius empowers people to deal with too much at the same time as it sort of hands them too much to deal with. This is Sirius teaching method. This is the way Sirius evolves consciousness. So let's just break down like Sag and Gemini. You know, we said a little about Sag in the new moon segment. But when we contrast Sag to Gemini, we really have something that comes into focus very, very clearly, which is that Gemini, it resonates with information. And Sag, on the opposite side of the sky, is related, but it resonates with truth. So here we have like various facts in Gemini. And here in Sag, we have what they mean, right? We have information and meaning. Here in Gemini, we have intellectual flexibility. And here in Sag, we have, by contrast, like one right way to think about things, right? Here in Gemini, we have intellectual flexibility. Here we have there's my way or the highway in Sag. There's one way, one right way to do things. In a way, for people who are familiar, Gemini symbolizes inductive logic and Sag symbolizes deductive logic. And just to make a little sense of that for people who don't know what I'm talking about, inductive logic is like there could be many different answers that satisfy the question. Right? The problem, I don't know, 4 times 4 equals. Now we, in our modern thinking, have become brainwashed to think, well, that's 16. And 16 is true. It satisfies that, but that's only maybe the simplest and the most elegant way. There could be equally simple and elegant ways. Could say 4 times 4 equals 2 times 8. You could say 4 times 4 equals 4 to the second power, which is actually the same number of digits as 16. So there's this is where we get into modern institutional prejudice, and that's deductive logic, right? Deductive logic eliminates all the possibilities except the one true and right possibility, right? So Sag eliminates everything except 16. All right, but Gemini gets really interested, like, well, how many ways could we solve this equation? How many ways could we express 4 times 4? That's an interesting question from a Gemini point of view. And, Gemini might create a list of answers to that equation. And that is the simple difference between inductive logic and deductive logic. Now we're using mathematical examples to illustrate logical principles, and that is probably not the most cleanest, correct example of this, but I didn't want to get into inventing like logical exercises to make examples. I just want to say with inductive logic, many answers, deductive logic, the one true and right answer, right? So that's Sag Gemini. When we have the moon in Gemini and the sun in Sag, really highlights this axis, this dichotomy of like truth and facts, truth and information. The moon is with Jupiter, conjoined by degree to Jupiter, and the sun is in Jupiter's stars. This is very Jupiterian, and it favors Jupiter and Sag's growth. It favors their expansion, and it favors increase, generally speaking. And what will increase will be personal to a great extent, but Jupiter oppositions and squares here. We're making the square to Chiron stationed. Jupiter harsh angles, in short, are least harmful of all. So the opposition and the squares here are really not seen to be as detrimental in the case of Jupiter. And Jupiter's placement in stars opposite its home stars, where it would classically be seen to be in detriment or downfall, could be said to be, that effect is lesser in Jupiter's case than any other body. By a wide margin, I think that Jupiter just handles challenging circumstances better than other planets in astrology. But let's keep moving. We have new projects, we have breakthrough, we have general growth, profit, expanse, insight, healing, all of this, like spiritual breakthrough, right? And recognition of true self. Sun, Mars, and Venus meet on fixed star Nunki, which is more potently charged than most Sagittarius stars. The stars of Sag are famously mellow, but Nunki is the star at the shoulder of the archer where the bow is drawn and the tension is held. So in Nunki, we find the hand that holds the drawn bow and commands the tension, also the release, which literally sends the arrow flying. So it's like this critical point within Sag. Nunki is very central to the constellation of Sag. It's very ecliptic. The star Nunki is very close to the ecliptic, and it provides within Sag a lot of dynamic power, which will be reflected by the moon, who sits in the degree. Now, Sirius is a very southern star, but the moon sits in the degree of fixed star Sirius, which I said is the most powerful, the brightest, the scorcher. It's the dog star, yeah. And it signifies spiritual insight, It signifies intense loyalty. This is a Jupiter function too. It signifies divine wisdom in another Jupiter function that it shares. It signifies rebirth. It signifies renown, honor, and powerful intention. But rebirth, it signifies new beginnings, and it's like Pluto. Sirius is like Pluto in that it has the power to catalyze transformation and regeneration and rebirth. And connected to the moon, this is going to act on collective and individual awareness in all of us. So it's going to be a month, a powerful catalytic month, and this full moon is going to be powerfully Jupiterian, powerfully transformative, and probably we can say for the better. Now, I'm not going to promise everyone pleasant experiences or transformation for the better that's, I don't know, nice or easy. I've never heard of transformation that's nice or easy. Sirius doesn't have a nice, easy reputation. When we talk about things being like Pluto, that's like look out. So I don't want to pull any sort of wool over anyone's eyes in this regard. It could be difficult. It really could be, but it has the power to catalyze improvement, change for the better. Unlike Pluto, which is pretty neutral, it will just transform. And just transform, for better or worse. Sirius and Jupiter and Sagittarius tend to transform with an intention of uplift and improvement. And last, with this full moon, we have to look at Chiron, who's stationed direct. So for the new moon, Jupiter-Chiron was a very close square. That was an 8 arc-minute square. 0 degree, 8 arc-minutes. Very, very close to exact. It's now 1 degree and 34 arc-minutes. But the close square to Jupiter infuses everything with healing, because Jupiter is concordant with Sag. It's like, quote unquote, ruling the sun. It's conjunct to the moon, and this square to Chiron that affects it, it's going to trickle down and infuse with power of healing and the power of spiritual healing and depth healing. It infuse this entire lunar cycle very effortlessly. So we have the energies of resolution, of healing, of forgiveness, in Pisces, like we're lightening the emotional load, especially from the pain and trauma of early life. This is especially signified by Chiron. So Chiron, like Sirius, heralds positive transformation, right? It heralds healing and change for the better. So this full moon, dynamic as it might be and lit up and Jupiterian, we can expect extra big displays, fabulous tension, lots of anxiety as change and transformation come to kind of express themselves as they're indicated here. But we have to pay attention to insights around healing if we want to make the most of this month. And we can pay attention to guidance if life is speaking omens to you, right? That's Pisces. And in dreams we can understand. Sagittarius Gemini is meaningful coincidences, synchronicities, right? Everyday magic. And this is a full moon that not everybody is likely to be able to channel constructively. I say that there's a lot of unusual tension, a lot of unusual dynamic energy with Sun on the Mars-Venus midpoint. And this has been cooking for over a month since Venus was here and Mars was here. And we were back in just entering Scorpio season. We entered it with the Sun, Mars, and Venus in a powerful, powerful relationship. And this combined with the Nunki Sirius axis, there's just going to be a ton of dynamic energy this full moon. So it could be bigger than some people are designed to handle. It could really expand people's understanding, conception of what they're able to handle. And this will all be happening through the holiday season for people who observe the solstice or Christmas holidays. And the whole cycle is actually a really good omen of new healing, new beginnings, that will go to next month's new moon conjunct Pluto. So all of this transformation and change. It's great that we have Jupiter involved. It's great that we have Chiron involved. It's great that we have Sirius involved. It's great that we have Nunki involved, because it sort of sets the tone of next month's meeting with Pluto. It sets the tone with hope and optimism and change for the better. And at the same time, it's framed in terms of great intensity. So the challenge to everyone will be to use the Jupiterian intensity constructively. So keep things contained, right? Don't go too far. Don't get too excited about healing or manifesting your dreams, not because those things aren't awesome or appropriate. They're both, but because Jupiter squares and Chiron station direct just tends to be too much excitement, too much it's kind of unrealistic, unreasonable dreams, right? Doing everything all at once, wanting to heal completely, you know. And that there's nothing wrong with that impulse, except that we may feel it in unrealistic ways this month. So keeping things realistic, keeping them reasonable, and know that this flow of time supports all these things, positive change, deep healing, and religio-spiritual clarification. But also built into this flow are the tendencies to over-expect, right? Or to dream bigger than we can achieve. And that really pretty well sums up my thoughts on this full moon, January 3rd, 2026. Very, very powerful. And these waning transits are a mess. So let's check them out. All right. First of all, I don't even know how I'm going to position. I don't know how I'm going to position this. Let's see. Okay. That works. So here we are, and we're looking at the period of time between the 3rd, that's the full moon that we just looked at, and the 18th, which is the next new moon. So these are the waning transits, and January 10th will signify the waning quarter moon. And again, what we see if we look attentively, if we look carefully, is clusters where Sun, Venus, and Mars are sort of doing similar things. Here, they're conjoining, and this is great. This is actually fantastic, because Mars and Venus will actually interchange, and Mars will go from being the evening star to being the morning star, and Venus will go from being the morning star to the evening star. And what this represents, in short, is an ancient, going back to Sumer, going back to Babylon, an ancient understanding of omens shifting from war omens to peace omens, more peaceful by far. And then we have another where Sun, Venus, and Mars are also engaged in kind of similar activity, and they'll be opposing Jupiter here on the 9th and 10th of January 2026, and that will literally take us into the waning quarter moon. So after the full moon, we have the changing of the guard, and we have the guard who's changing, we have them opposing Jupiter. Again, this is Sagittarian transit, Sun, Venus, and Mars transiting through Sagittarius, opposed to Jupiter. So very Jupiterian, very, very powerfully auspicious and turned up and optimistic. There could be very good developments geopolitically in this time. And they may be likely to last some short while, while Mars and Venus are in this position relative to the Sun. We may see talks of peace. We may see actions, actionable peace. We may see good things in the world. Let's hope so. And then I want to call everyone's attention to the last thing before we check out the waning quarter moon, and that's the Saturn sextile to Uranus. And we see there's no exact contact. The exact contact happens the 20th of January, so 2 days off this chart. That's the third contact of 3. So this goes back to March 2025. And it hit its peak in August 2025. So this cycle is wrapping up some cycles of reformation and change and kind of system overhaul that have been with us all year 2025, going back to February and March. All right, then we have waning quarter moon. Let's look at it. Yeah, let's leave this here for now. For those who prefer to deep dive this, I encourage you to pause your video. And for the rest of us, in the interest of time, we'll jump back to the waning transits. Eris stations direct on the 11th and 12th. We can expect the unexpected. And this favors shadow work. Eris will be with Chiron. This favors healing and shadow work, deep self-exploration, clarifying the self-relationship, and integrating any parts of ourself that we don't like, that we've othered, and that we have made into a sort of shadow for ourselves. Very powerful work. Very blessed by Eris and by the proximity of inner planets to Pluto as they approach at this time. And we have Venus square Eris on the 13th. We have Mercury opposite Jupiter on the 14th, and Sun square Eris on the 14th too. This could all combine to create drama or tension. We have Mercury associated with Antares and its disdain for drama. So with Jupiter opposite, let's be careful not to go too far. And if we do, don't be dramatic. Don't be dramatic. All month, all year, we really have to watch ourselves. Drama for drama's sake, using drama as a sort of political tool or a politics at any level too. You don't have to be a head of state to use drama as a political tool. This is all cautioned against very heavily with the Mercury and Antares correlation that we saw for the new moon, also for that Sun conjunct galactic center, that new moon chart for the upcoming year. So careful with this Jupiter opposite Mercury on the 14th. Careful about guarding your words on the 13th and 14th. Guarding your words will be probably more important than we'd like. So also important on the 13th and 14th. Let's resist the urge to believe that we're totally correct, that others are totally wrong, and resist the urge, right, to talk too much, to overshare. Resist the urge to try to convince or convert others. These are good urges to resist. It's good to have fun. It's good to have fun, but in the having fun of Jupiter opposite Mercury, don't go too far. So good to be in control. Then we have Venus sextile Saturn on the 15th, and we also have Venus trine to Uranus on the 15th. And the Saturn-Uranus connection, it combines to stabilize and change Venus's self-relationship function. So especially at the level of religio-spiritual orientation. It's a Sag Pisces thing. this could update our relationship to ourselves. This has the potential to be a time of personal self-review, and that's really good. That's really good to use this time, really the last waning week as we're winding down toward the next new moon, because you'll see the next new moon. I've mentioned it several times, the proximity to Pluto. And as we're winding down, this is a good time to take self-examination. Right in the middle of the waning week, we have this really natural energy on the 14th and 15th that's going to have us looking at ourselves and saying, what do I want to change? What would I change if I could? Mars square Eris on the 15th, 16th, and 17th can be contentious and sneaky. Mars square Eris can be underhanded and duplicitous. So just be aware around this time that people might have strange impulses to power, and just be warned, just be aware. Sometimes recognition is more than enough. And then on, let's see, what are we doing? We'll move my head down here. On the 17th, we have a very busy day. We have Sun sextile Saturn, Venus sextile Neptune. We have Sun trine to Uranus, and we have Mercury square to Eris, and then Mercury leads into a conjunction with Mars that'll take us into the next new moon. Amazing. So it's a very busy day astrologically, the 17th. I want to encourage everyone to look out for deep currents, look out for undertows, psychic forces, right, from like deep below. These outer planets, when they mix with inner planets, often cause a lot of disorientation as we're dealing with forces from below the level of conscious thought, right? I'll leave that there. We have Mercury and Mars on the 18th, on the day of the next new moon, and there could be urges to argue about, maybe if there's urges to argue, they'd be about deeper things, but it could be quick wits, very sharp reflexes, very ornery. Mars and Mercury together, when they get together, they're irascible, they're sassy, they're contentious, they're very quick-witted, though, very sharp, very smart. We don't see it on the graph, but Mercury and Mars are within conjunction to Pluto, as are the Sun and Venus at this time. So right now, I'm actually going to switch this out to the next new moon. And now we're looking at January 18th, 2026. We have a sextuple conjunction between all the inner planets and Pluto. And so the Sun and Moon and their inner planet family have joined the basket. This will be both simple and complex to talk about. We'll talk about it next month. Yeah, so this month offers a little Piscean confusion and Saturnian delay. Be back in the thick of it next month as the Sun and Moon enter into formation with the basket, basically. Yeah, we'll just see about that next month. Real Armands calendars and planners are available. This is block print, 13 moon goodness, and we'll throw the link up. That's priestesspress .art on the press. Yeah, check it out. Thank you, Rio, for all of your hard work and dedication to the community. Speaking of community, the International Sidereal Astrology Association has a website. They do, and the website has resources on it, and it's awesome, and I encourage you to check it out. We'll put that up, siderealinternational.org. I recently published a video about looking at the whole great year and more within Stellarium using long-term ephemerides, and I created a blank sidereal chart template, and I published a video on their use, and I'll link those at the end, which should be right about soon because I don't have a whole lot to say this month. So peace and blessings to you all. Happy New Year and solstice and all the things that you might celebrate. Bless you. See you next month.